heart-touching twist. CEO's refusal sparks incredible $5 billion discovery overnight. Jessica tightened her grip on the microphone, her heart racing as she stood before the town hall crowd. A chill swept through the room after the wealthy tech CEO dismissed her healthcare initiative as a waste of time. His arrogance hung heavy, stifling hope. Maple Grove was a community built on compassion, yet here stood a man who thought their dreams were dust. As her kids shuffled nervously in the front row, she thought of her nightly shifts at the hospital, the long hours trying to provide for them while caring for her father, the proud World War II veteran whose spirit dimmed with every tick of the clock. Tears stung her eyes. What right did he have to ignore their struggle? In that moment, she felt a fire ignite within. "I refuse to let this community be brushed aside." Jessica's voice rang loud and clear, slicing through the tension. Whispers rippled through the crowd, the teachers, farmers, and shop owners of Maple Grove feeling a surge of indignation. Their hearts beat with a shared mission, to stand strong against this corporate giant. They deserved recognition. They deserved hope. With each word, Jessica painted a picture of a hometown rich in love, struggling but resilient. The anger in the room transformed into a fierce determination. Maple Grove had history, and it had heart. "We're here to serve each other," she declared. After the meeting, as she combed through the dusty archives of the hospital's records, a glimmer of forgotten hope caught her eye. A groundbreaking medical technology buried under red tape, never given a chance. This was it. The discovery could elevate their health care. Could this change everything? She whispered to herself, excitement bubbling beneath her surface. But then came the shadows of doubt, a corporate giant looming over her, hungry to ignore what they couldn't profit from. Would they allow this breakthrough to slip away? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Facing the CEO again was daunting, but Jessica summoned her courage and demanded respect. "You may see numbers, but we're living, breathing lives," she implored, her voice unwavering. Just when it seemed her passion had struck a chord, a truth about her father emerged, linking back to the very technology she fought for. His service in the war had laid the groundwork for this innovation, a legacy woven into the fabric of their fight. With determination burning in her chest and the support of her beloved community swelling around her, Jessica stood tall. Would they finally find validation in their forgotten dreams? The stakes were higher than ever, but their battle wasn't just for better health care. It was for dignity, justice, and the unbreakable spirit of Maple Grove. In the electrifying silence that followed her confrontation, hope shimmered like the dawn creeping over the horizon. What awaited them was uncertain, but one thing was clear: they were ready to reclaim their voices. The next day dawned bright and crisp, a stark contrast to Jessica's swirling emotions. She awoke before sunrise, the weight of her newfound responsibility pressing heavily on her chest. The discovery from the hospital's archives had ignited something in her, an urgency she couldn't ignore. This wasn't just about her family or Maple Grove anymore. It was about igniting a movement that could challenge the very foundations of neglect that plagued communities like hers. With a steaming cup of coffee in hand, she gathered her thoughts at the kitchen table, where family photos reminded her of the sacrifices made for the greater good. She clutched the folder of documents containing the breakthrough in her hands, its crinkled edges reflecting years of neglect. This wasn't just stale paperwork. It held the promise of hope and healing. For once, the technology had potential. It could revolutionize care in their town. But would they have the resources to bring it to life? "Danny, are you okay?" Jessica's voice broke through her reverie. His small hands gripped the back of the chair, concern etched on his innocent face. Jessica leaned down to meet him eye to eye. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Just thinking about how we can help others who need it," she replied, forcing a smile. It was important her kids felt her unshakable spirit. They needed to see that strength. It was her way of showing them resilience in the face of challenge. Suddenly, an idea struck her. "We need to set up a meeting, a big one," she said, her heart racing as she spoke. "The community needs to know about the technology, and I can't do it alone. We can gather support. We can plan how to push the CEO to change his mind." As she excitedly drafted emails and texts with her neighbors, the momentum grew. The community center buzzed with energy later that week as citizens poured in, their faces lit with determination. Jessica stood at the front, inspiration radiating from her, reminding everyone why they had come together. Her words flowed like a river, igniting their passions. The economy was faltering, families were struggling, and healthcare was slipping through the cracks, but together they could change that narrative. "Maple Grove deserves better. How are we going to make this happen?" she asked, her voice rising with intensity. The room erupted with cheers and ideas. They brainstormed fundraising events, car washes, bake sales, and street fairs. Every suggestion was met with enthusiasm. For the first time in a long while, it seemed like hope wasn't just an abstract concept, it was tangible. As they finalized plans and set a date for their first fundraiser, Jessica felt the stirrings of something profound. It went beyond medical technologies. It became a fight for respect, for community integrity, for the right to dream of better days. Together, they illustrated a picture of unity against a powerful opponent. But just as hope surged, an email popped into her inbox. It was from the CEO's office. They wanted to meet, and he would only speak to her. Excitement twisted in her stomach. Was this the breakthrough she'd been waiting for, or a calculated move to undermine her efforts? Standing at the edge of a new chapter in her life, Jessica breathed deeply. The battle lines were being drawn, and the stakes had never been higher. What would she say when faced with the very man who dismissed her beliefs? With hope and conviction, she resolved to fight for not just her community, but for all those who felt unseen in a world dominated by corporations chasing profits over lives. How could she resist the lure of both challenge and possibility? The moment of truth arrived, and her heart pounded with the weight of the consequences. Would her voice echo loud enough to drown out the silence of indifference? The day of the meeting arrived, and Jessica could hardly contain her nerves. Dressed in her best blazer, she felt both empowered and vulnerable. She had rehearsed her points 1,000 times in her head, but the reality of facing him, of confronting someone whose decisions had such weight, was daunting. Each step toward the corporate building was accompanied by a mix of dread and determination. As she entered the pristine lobby, the contrast was sharp. Here, everything was sleek and polished, a world away from the worn-down streets of Maple Grove. It felt like stepping into another universe. Jessica took a deep breath, reminding herself why she was there. This wasn't just for her, but for everyone counting on her to make a difference. The receptionist eyed her skeptically, but buzzed her through with an indifferent nod. Moments later, she found herself sitting in an impressively large conference room, the long table polished to a mirror finish. There he was, the CEO, Henry Caldwell, sitting at the opposite end, looking even more formidable than his reputation suggested. "Ms. Taylor," he greeted, his voice smooth but devoid of warmth. "What can I do for you?" Maple Grove is a small market. Profits are key. Hearing those words sent a chill down her spine. This man, so powerful, viewed the world through a wall of numbers. Yet she persisted. "It's about more than profits. It's about people. Your innovation could save lives, change futures, build an entire community resting on better healthcare access." As she spoke, she laid out her vision with passion, sharing personal stories of families in her town, the struggles they faced, and ultimately the potential impact. But each passionate plea was met with a silent wall. His gaze never wavered from her, but his expression suggested he was ready to dismiss her ideas as naive. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but we operate in a pragmatic world," he said coldly. Money talks and is what draws interest. Simple as that. The words hit her like a slap. Desperation gripped her insides, and for a moment she faltered. But then it dawned on her. She wasn't just fighting for Maple Grove. She was standing against a mindset that had become a barrier for so many. Maybe it's not just about money, she challenged, her heart racing. Maybe it's about building a legacy, a story that future generations would tell about a company that chose humanity over greed. Isn't that worth something? His silence hung heavy in the air, and she could see the wheels turning in his mind. Finally, he leaned back, crossing his arms. You're a passionate one, I'll give you that, but we simply don't have the luxury for sentiment or charity in this business. Jessica's heart sank, yet she didn't waver. Somewhere there's a number, a bottom line, but there are still lives impacted by your choices. This technology could be the bridge. Caldwell raised a brow. What's your proposal? Suddenly, she felt a spark of hope tingle through her and realized she had been given an opening. What if we partnered? You could gain new business, and we could gain the care we need. It's symbiotic. For the first time, something shifted in his demeanor. The wheels were still turning, and Jessica felt the grumbling thunder of possibility. As the meeting continued, possibilities unfolded, ideas formed, and challenges emerged. But what surprised Jessica the most was the sudden glimmer of willingness, almost against his own nature. Little did she know that waves of change were beginning to ripple through the air, as if the universe itself was rallying around Maple Grove. And then her phone buzzed, drawing her attention to a text that changed everything. Her community had just launched the campaign they had discussed, and the initial donations soared beyond her wildest expectations. But would that be enough to convince Caldwell? Would the tide truly turn? In that moment, she realized her fight was only beginning, and the true challenge lay in continuing to balance these newly forged connections while advocating for her town.
The meeting wasn't the end, but rather just the start of an intense and unpredictable battle. Clenching her fists, Jessica straightened her back, ready to dive deeper. Would the corporate world listen to her heart when she poured hers into the fight? The answer was still unwritten. Jessica sat at the polished table, the weight of Caldwell's words pressing down on her. The initial excitement of the campaign's success faded into a muted disbelief. Yes, the donations had soared, but she needed more than numbers. She needed a partnership that could resonate beyond the spreadsheets. Ms. Taylor, Caldwell spoke, breaking her reverie. Your passion is commendable, but passion alone won't change my mind. What's your concrete plan? For a moment, her thoughts twisted like smoke, trying to form something tangible. She envisioned the community members, their smiling faces, their struggles, and realized her fire was more than just a dream. We could implement your technology on a trial basis, she urged, her heart racing. Pilot programs that showcase its impact in real time. The data would be undeniable. He tilted his head, intrigued but still skeptical. And what guarantees me the return on investment? Without that, I'm afraid we're back to square one. Feeling a warmth rise in her chest, she pointed out the other side. But think about the long-term benefits. Highlighting your corporation's commitment to social responsibility could boost your reputation. The community will not only support your products, but celebrate your brand. Caldwell tapped his fingers on the table, lost in thought. She was breaking through that wall. Hope flickered again, igniting in her like a firefly in the night. As the conversation continued, a mix of negotiation and brainstorming hung in the air. Ideas flowed back and forth like waves crashing on the shore. But just when Jessica thought she had him, his phone buzzed, stealing his attention. He checked the screen and frowned, his demeanor shifting. "Apologies," he said curtly, standing up. "I need to take this call. Please excuse me." As he walked out, doubt crept in. Would this moment slip through her fingers? The walls took on a darker shade as she wrestled with her thoughts. Was passion enough to sway someone like him? She glanced around the room, its emptiness echoing the uncertainty rising inside her. All at once, a text from her best friend Mia flashed across her phone. "Jess, urgent! Something huge just happened with the campaign. Call me ASAP." Her instincts kicked in.
Whatever news Mia had was important, and perhaps even a spark that could change the tide. Reluctantly, Jessica stood up, looking at the closed door where Caldwell had exited. With one deep breath, she slipped out of the conference room and into the hall.
They're saying your story has the potential to blow up. Jessica's heart raced. What? 5 million? That's incredible. Yes, Mia exclaimed, her joy spilling through the phone. And there's more. Some influential media outlets are interested, but they want an exclusive interview right now while the buzz is high. Jessica felt the realization wash over her. This was her moment. A chance not just for her campaign, but to challenge Caldwell's entire perspective. I could use this, Mia. I could turn this into a storytelling opportunity to show him the very heart of what we're advocating for, the lives we can change. Mia's voice bubbled over with pride. Exactly! Use this excitement. Show him he's not dealing with just numbers. He's part of something monumental. You have to connect that to him. As she hung up, energy surged within her. She turned back, intending to make her way back to the conference room when she spotted Caldwell approaching, his expression tense. "Everything okay, Mr. Caldwell?" she asked, nerves mingling with anticipation. "The news about your campaign, it just may have altered our discussion, but I need to confirm something first," he replied, a hint of curiosity sparking in his eyes. "Confirm what?" she pressed, her heart pounding. His gaze locked onto hers, intensity threading between them. What exactly is the community willing to commit to once the technology is in action? Before answering, she paused to reflect. This was not just about numbers anymore. It was about the connection, the lives transformed, and the collective spirit of Maple Grove. "More than you could imagine," she replied, her voice steady. "They're ready, but you have to meet them halfway." The silence enveloped them, charged with possibility. Would he take the leap? Would he step out of his own world of numbers and embrace that human element she desperately wanted him to see? As he weighed her words, Jessica felt an undeniable stirring within her, a fire igniting in the face of uncertainty, whispering that maybe, just maybe, the legacy they would build together could be something truly transformative. And then came the looming question, as they stood there eye to eye. Would he choose a legacy of connection over mere profits? Caldwell stood silently for a moment, the tension hanging thick in the air. Jessica could see the wheels turning in his mind, a cocktail of skepticism and intrigue flashing across his face. She felt her heart thud heavily against her ribcage. This was her moment. Everything hinged on his next words. "Okay," he said finally, crossing his arms. "Say I consider this partnership. What is the community's actual commitment? How do I know they won't just disappear when the tech is implemented?" Jessica hesitated, but the urgency from Mia's call surged again through her. "They won't," she asserted, her voice gaining strength. "This community has been waiting for something like this for so long. They want to see change, and I can show you the testimonials, the letters. The people of Maple Grove are ready to roll up their sleeves." Caldwell raised an eyebrow, the challenge evident. "You think heartfelt stories will sell my board on this? Real change requires measurable data, not just mercy." Fighting a wave of frustration, Jessica clutched her hands together. "But it's more than that. It's about trust. The community has already pledged their support. People are energized to participate, ready to share their time and energy to ensure we succeed." He leaned in, looking intensely critical. "What if it fails, Jessica? What if the community backs off when they see the real scale?" Jessica stepped closer, her determination propelling her forward. "Then let's make it transparent. We share results together, good and bad. But I believe in what we can achieve. We've got the chance to create a ripple effect, to show the world that corporations can care and communities can thrive." His expression hardened for a moment, but then the corners of his mouth hinted at a reluctant smile. "I don't often get moved by passion. You're taking a big risk here." "Then let me take that risk," Jessica implored. "I can mobilize the community to share their stories, their successes, not just for our initiative, but for your company. They'll invest in you once they see your commitment to them." Suddenly, Caldwell's phone buzzed again, breaking the moment.
He mouthed a quick apology and stepped away to take the call. As he turned, Jessica's heart sank. She felt like a tether, stretched thin, waiting for a decision that could change everything. Moments later, he returned, his expression more pensive. "Jessica, I need to understand how this will play out in the long term. Let's say we agree to a trial. What does that mean in terms of scale?" Her pulse quickened. "It starts small, a pilot with a few workshops. Equip them with your tech. Let them feel its impact. We can track every step of the process, publish live updates, and gather feedback. We'll transform this into a campaign within a campaign." "What kind of feedback?" he pressed, seemingly ready to buy into her vision, but still guarded. "Qualitative and quantitative," she replied, her mind racing. "Surveys, testimonials, tracking metrics, and visual storytelling, photos, videos. People want to be seen and heard. We can create an entire social media campaign around it. Think about your brand as a catalyst for good." A slow nod from Caldwell indicated he was processing her words, but doubt still clouded his eyes. Jessica could sense hesitation linger like fog, yet an ember of hope flickered inside her. "We could even plan a launch event, bring together community members, local influencers, media. That's when we can show you how they're ready to stand proudly with you." Caldwell's gaze softened, revealing a glimpse of thoughtfulness beneath his steely exterior.
"I'll need to run these ideas up the chain before I can commit, and if we do this, it will need to show results quickly. Quickly, but sustainably," she added, "and I promise it will resonate. You'll see the impact instill confidence and drive ripple effects. Think about what this could mean for your company." Just as she finished, Mia's voice echoed in her head. "You're more than just a campaign, you're a movement." Caldwell looked around the room, and for a heartbeat she held her breath. Maybe, just maybe, he would see the fire within the spirit of Maple Grove. "I'll consider your proposal, Miss Taylor," he said finally, his tone cautious but less icy than before. "Let's reconvene once I have more information." As he walked away, Jessica felt an unexpected swell of excitement mixed with apprehension. Would her dreams come to fruition? Could a mundane partnership birth real change? Her phone buzzed again, interrupting her thoughts. A notification lit up the screen. "Emotional response from the community is surging. Media outlets going wild." Jessica smiled, understanding what could be on the horizon. But how would she keep this momentum? The next step loomed. If Caldwell was intrigued, could her community grasp this opportunity? Would they rise to the challenge and prove doubters wrong? Jessica held her breath, feeling the edge of possibility sharpen. Just as she turned to gather her things, another message flash drew her in. Urgent news. What now? Jessica's fingers trembled as she opened the notification. The words on the screen blurred momentarily, her heart racing as a sense of urgency flooded through her. What kind of urgent news could demand her attention so violently? "Urgent news," it read, with several emojis emphasizing the chaos surrounding it. She clicked on the message, her mind racing with possibilities, not all of them good. It was from Mia, and seconds later a follow-up text came through. "Caldwell's company just backed out of a multi-million-dollar deal. Moves like this can be a game-changer for us." Stunned, Jessica quickly scrolled for more details. Her heart sank with each line. Caldwell's board had flagged a discrepancy in their fiscal reports, a suspect investment gone wrong. There were rumors brewing that his company's credibility was on the line, and they needed to regroup fast. What did this mean for her community? The possibility of losing Caldwell felt devastating, but a small spark ignited inside her. "This could be our opportunity," she whispered to herself, convincing herself to believe it. If Caldwell was struggling to secure his reputation, maybe he would consider our partnership more seriously. After all, they needed each other now more than ever. She quickly gathered her thoughts and summoned her courage to call Mia. When Mia picked up, her voice was frantic. "Jessica, we need to act fast. I'm hearing whispers that Caldwell is under a lot of pressure."
If we can position Maple Grove as a beacon of hope, we could take the lead. As if caught in a whirlwind, Jessica found herself pacing the small cafe where they had first discussed the initiative. "What do you have in mind? We need something big." Mia hesitated, and Jessica sensed the weight of the moment. What if we organized a community event? A rally to showcase what we stand for, the positive engagement, the tech solutions, everything. We can amplify our message and get the media involved. Jessica's mind raced. A rally? The idea had potential. It could draw attention not just for their project, but also show Caldwell the community's enthusiasm firsthand. We can make it a celebration. Show Caldwell and the world that Maple Grove is alive and thriving, ready to welcome change. Mia's voice brightened. Exactly. We'll invite local leaders, influencers, and even the media. They'll see real people, living, breathing hope. We'll make sure everyone knows what's at stake. Jessica could feel a surge of adrenaline flushing through her. She could paint a picture of unity and purpose. But would that be enough to sway Caldwell? "Let's do it," she said resolutely. "We'll call it the Maple Grove Tech Fair. It'll be a day for learning, involvement, and inspiration, a showcase of what we can achieve together." They exchanged ideas, brainstorming activities, speakers, and logistics. As Jessica hung up, her anxiety morphed into determination. This was their shot. She could picture the community excitedly participating, coming together for a common cause. The prospect filled her with hope. That evening she sat at her desk, her heart racing again, not with doubt, but with anticipation. Each email she sent, every phone call she made spread a wave of optimism through the community. The word was out. The Maple Grove Tech Fair was happening. Yet doubts lingered in the corners of her mind. Would Caldwell be swayed by a fair? Would the pressure weighing on him lead him to reconsider? As the date approached, she felt a mixture of exhilaration and anxiety. There was a lot resting on this event. What if it didn't go as planned? What if they didn't have the turnout they needed? With the sun setting outside her window, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, she took a deep breath. She needed to believe. The morning of the fair arrived. The sun shone bright, illuminating the bustling energy of the community. Jessica looked out, her heart pounding. Did she misjudge the turnout? People were still arriving, and her anticipation escalated. Just then a familiar figure strode toward her. Caldwell stood at the threshold of the bustling fair, his expression difficult to read. Would he step forward and embrace this partnership, or turn around, walking away from the hope that Maple Grove offered? Jessica held her breath, ready for a moment that could change everything. Caldwell's gaze swept across the lively fairgrounds, taking in the colorful banners that marked the entrance and the lively crowd bustling with excitement. Jessica could see him weighing the possibilities as he hesitated a moment longer at the edge of the celebration. This was more than just an event. It was their attempt to showcase resilience, solidarity, and a future worth investing in. "Jessica!" a voice interrupted her. It was Mia, rushing toward her with a bright smile, holding a clipboard that was almost bursting with notes. "We have to finalize the schedule. The local press is arriving any minute." Jessica nodded, momentarily torn between the craving to approach Caldwell and the urgency of the event's preparations. The fair was alive with energy. A local band set up on stage while families wandered through improvised booths showcasing local tech innovations. She could hear laughter, the buzz of conversations, and the enticing smell of food wafting through the air. "Let's keep the momentum going," Jessica said, her voice steadying as she focused on the tasks at hand. They divided the responsibilities, Mia eagerly engaging with vendors and volunteers, while Jessica took a deep breath and steeled herself to make a move toward Caldwell. But just as she began to walk over, an unexpected roar erupted from the stage. The band had started playing a lively tune that had people clapping along, cheering for more, a perfect backdrop to a moment of hope. Jessica's heart raced. She took a deep breath before stepping closer, ready to make her pitch. Caldwell turned, finally catching sight of her.
Their eyes locked, and Jessica felt a mix of nerves and determination flood her body. This wasn't just about business. It was about the heart of Maple Grove. "Mr. Caldwell," she called, weaving through the crowd, her voice cutting through the music. His expression softened slightly as she approached. "Thank you for coming. We're so glad to have you here." He nodded slowly, but there was an air of caution about him. "I wasn't sure what to expect. This is impressive." He gestured with his chin towards the fairgrounds, but Jessica saw the uncertainty creeping back into his brow. "It's about the community, Caldwell. We've gathered here to show you what Maple Grove can achieve together. We want to be partners. You can help us thrive." Caldwell shifted his weight, glancing around at the animated crowd. "Look, Jessica, I admire your passion, but the decision I have to make isn't as simple as a nice event. The pressure I'm under is considerable." Jessica hesitated, the weight of his words hanging in the air. "I understand, but maybe what you need isn't just numbers on a page. Maybe you need to see the real impact. There's hope here, a chance to innovate and grow." Just then, a group of enthusiastic children rushed past them, clutching handmade signs that read, "Tech for Change."
Her project was about creating sustainable energy solutions for small towns, and she was undeniably captivating. As she ran through the statistics, the crowd clapped along, swept up by her enthusiasm. "This is what it means to believe in our future," she declared, and for a moment, Jessica watched Caldwell's jaw unclench. In that moment, Jessica opened her mouth to speak, but the strain of the fair setting itself transformed into a palpable energy. It was no longer about selling Caldwell on numbers. It was about a community pouring their heart and soul into a future they all desired. The competition continued, unlocking innovation after innovation. Each child who took center stage showed more depth than the last, and Jessica could see Caldwell starting to absorb the electricity of their dreams. She leaned in slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Every idea counts, and every voice matters here. This isn't just a fair. This could be the launch pad for something big." Caldwell's eyes flashed towards her, and in that fleeting glance, Jessica felt a surge of hope. Could he finally see it? Could he feel the heartbeat of Maple Grove pulsing through each of these young minds? Just as the final competitor wrapped up their pitch, a dazzling array of technologies aimed at supporting local farmers, Caldwell turned to Jessica, his expression newly softened. "Perhaps I've underestimated the emotional weight behind this event," he admitted. For the first time, Jessica sensed a crack in the wall that had seemed so impenetrable. Applause erupted like fireworks across the fairgrounds, and Jessica almost dared to reach for his arm to encourage him further. But just as she initiated the motion, the crowd fell into a hushed awe as the announcer prepared to deliver the winner. This could be it," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Yet before the moment could ripen into an all-out celebration, the announcer's voice suddenly faltered, "And the winner, chosen by community votes, is—" Just then, a surge from the crowd distracted her. A calamity of raised voices and startled murmurs spread like wildfire. Caldwell's eyes widened as he turned toward the commotion, and Jessica's heart fell into her stomach. What could possibly ruin this moment? She followed his gaze and saw a commotion near the far edge of the fairgrounds. A man clad in a suit slightly too formal for the occasion had shoved his way through the crowd. His face held an urgency that seemed out of place. "What now?" Jessica whispered, sensing the impending disruption. Caldwell's focus shifted, curiosity flipping to concern. "I need to see what's happening. Stay here," he instructed, already stepping toward the disturbance. As Jessica stood there, confusion swirling in her mind, she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever unfolded next might change everything, for better or worse. The atmosphere tightened, tension rising high. Would this moment be a breakthrough for their community, or would it usher in new obstacles just as hope began to settle? Questions raced through her mind, and uncertainty dripped like a cold sweat as her heart drummed in her chest. She couldn't ignore the surge of emotion. Something monumental was about to happen,
But what direction would it take? The crowd parted reluctantly for the man, his suit a stark contrast against the casual wear of the fairgoers. The murmurs grew more frantic. Jessica's eyes darted between Caldwell's back and the unexpected visitor, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. The announcer's voice faded into the background as she strained to make out snippets of conversation. People were speculating now, imagining scenarios that ranged from financial backing to threats against the event's legitimacy. Caldwell moved closer, determined to uncover the cause of the ruckus, leaving Jessica feeling small and trapped in the growing unease. "Let me through!" the man's voice was commanding. He had reached the front now and was scanning the crowd with an intensity that sent chills down Jessica's spine. His gaze fell upon the announcer, who looked visibly shaken. "There's been an error," the suited man declared, his voice carrying over the hush that had settled like a heavy fog. "I understand how much this event means to the community," he continued, a frown etched on his face. "But corporate decisions are not guided by feelings. They want to cut ties before any proposed project can damage their reputation." Jessica's thoughts raced. No, this can't happen, not after all that dedication and passion from the kids. She looked back at Caldwell, whose expression had transformed from concern to a fierce determination. This was the pivotal moment he had feared, yet she could see a fire igniting in his eyes. The crowd erupted into angry shouts. "Get off the stage!" someone yelled. "You don't understand what this means to us!" Those voices filled the air, and Jessica felt a wave of inspiration bubbling over the fear that had just gripped her heart. "Caldwell!" she shouted, clenching her fists. "This is your chance to be the change. You can still help them." He met her gaze, and for a heartbeat, everything stood still. Jessica saw the hesitation in his eyes, but also the spark that ignited seeing so many people stand together. It was a defining moment, an opportunity to fight back against the corporations that constantly overlooked the community. Caldwell took a deep breath, straightening his shoulders. "You heard them. We can't let this happen." He stepped forward, addressing the crowd, his voice strong and unwavering. "This isn't just about a sponsorship. It's about our community, about believing in our children and their ideas." Cheers erupted, swelling with determination. The unity was palpable, spinning a fragile web of hope amidst the chaos. Jessica felt tears prick at her eyes, pride swelling in her chest. This was the Caldwell she had hoped to see, that spark alive that could change everything. As Caldwell rallied the crowd, Jessica's heart raced with an understanding that something monumental was shifting. But just then the suited man interrupted, gripping the edge of the stage. "Wait, you don't understand what you're up against. You will regret this decision," he warned, fury flashing in his eyes. Jessica felt the air grow heavy once more. The stakes were sky high, and as Caldwell's defiance rose, she couldn't shake the feeling that the battle was only just beginning. What consequences would they face for standing against such a powerful adversary? The crowd responded to Caldwell's fervor, chants rising in a wave, but doubt crept back in. The envisioning of a triumph was overshadowed by fears of corporate revenge. Would their community remain united against adversity, or would they fracture under pressure? As Caldwell rallied hearts and minds, Jessica stood on the edge, caught between exhilaration and uncertainty. She needed to believe they could emerge victorious, but could they really? Would this singular moment turn into a movement that the town would stand behind, or would it all come crashing down in the wake of corporate decisions? The energy of the crowd surged like a tidal wave, pulsing with defiance and a newfound hope. Jessica felt her heart pounding as she embraced the moment. Caldwell stood on the edge, commanding the attention of Maple Grove, but he was no longer just a CEO. He was an ally, pushing back against the tide of indifference. "Together, we are stronger," Caldwell shouted, his voice cutting through the doubt that threatened to suffocate them all. "This isn't just about tech, it's about lives, the joy of our children, the future of our community." Jessica sank into the swell of voices chanting for change, her own voice mingling with theirs. Her vision of Maple Grove as a beacon of hope consumed her. Would they really embrace this together? Could this rally ignite their spirit into something unstoppable? The suited man's face twisted in rage and disbelief, frustration radiating from him as Caldwell and the crowd stood firm. "You can't fight what's set in motion," he yelled back, but instead of intimidation, his words kindled a deeper resolve among the townspeople. "Watch us," someone shouted from the back, followed by a wave of cheers that swept through the gathering like wildfire. Jessica scanned the faces around her, neighbors, friends, families, each one a building block in Maple Grove's beating heart.
A child stepped forward, gripping a handmade sign that read, "Kids deserve more." Her small frame was dwarfed by the weight of her message. The crowd parted for her, and in her innocent defiance, she embodied everything the town stood for. "Mr. Caldwell," she called, her voice small but resolute, "I want to be a scientist. We all need a chance to dream." Tears brimmed in Jessica's eyes as she glanced at Caldwell, who appeared visibly moved. The power of that moment echoed loud and clear. He turned, holding the gaze of the crowd, the urgency now limned with sincerity. "How can we build a future if we don't invest in our dreams?" Caldwell eagerly pressed on. "Your voices matter. This community matters." The vibe shifted again. A wave of determination rolled through Jessica's chest, filling her with courage. "What if we start with a pilot program?" she shouted, raising her arms to capture their attention. "What if we show the world what we can do together with this technology, right here in Maple Grove?" Caldwell's eyes sparkled with newfound potential, the weight of his corporate armor finally beginning to lighten. "You heard her," he exclaimed, rallying the crowd again. "Let's create a plan that shows not just the numbers, but the lives transformed. We will launch a collaborative effort, Maple Grove at the forefront of innovation." Cheers erupted, louder than before. Jessica felt electricity racing through her veins. Together they would push back against the forces that sought to diminish their worth. She felt the collective heartbeat of her community, the realization that each individual story connected into one, a beautiful tapestry woven with threads of hope. But just as the hope seemed tangible, the suited man stepped forward again, flanked by a group of Caldwell's staff. Their murmurs were filled with unrest as they attempted to adopt a factional approach. "You need to understand that corporate decisions don't change overnight. Don't let this false optimism blind you," he sneered. Caldwell's gaze sharpened. "And don't let anyone tell you that your community's worth is tied solely to profit margins." That was the moment Jessica decided to channel everything she felt into a single heartfelt plea. "What we're doing here isn't just about healthcare or technology, it's about humanity. Every person here has someone they love who deserves the best chance at life. We're offering you a legacy. Heroes aren't defined by the numbers they generate, but the lives they uplift." A flash pierced through the tension, a realization that transcended profit thinking and cut through to human connection, the very essence of being alive in a community bound together. Caldwell paused, his brow furrowing in thought. The worry creased his forehead, and for a moment Jessica feared it wouldn't be enough. But then he straightened up, as if an epiphany washed over him.
"We will launch the pilot program, but it will be a collaboration where we hear your stories and implement your technology to support our community. This isn't just a corporate agenda. It matters to us." The crowd erupted into thunderous applause. In that moment, Jessica felt tears of joy spilling from her eyes, relief flooding her veins. They did it. Her head spun with the realization that this was just the beginning. Together, they had taken a stand for Maple Grove, reclaiming their narrative from the depths of corporate dismissal. As the crowd continued to cheer, Jessica reached over and clasped Caldwell's arm, grateful for the shared commitment they had forged. "Thank you for listening," she whispered. "Thank you for fighting," he replied with sincerity. The suited man fumed, stepping back into the shadows of a power struggle quickly dissolving into something hopeful. Jessica sensed a shift. one that signaled unity over division, heart over greed, and an unwavering promise of change. In the echo of her community's strength, Jessica could feel the burdens of her world lifting. They were no longer just names and numbers in a tech report. They were a voice, a movement, the heart of Maple Grove. And in that moment, everything changed. Hope surged through the crowd, igniting their determination like wildfire. A promise that they would embrace this new chapter together. They would stand resilient, and the ripple effects would reach far beyond their little town. As they celebrated the birth of a new alliance, Jessica knew this was only the start of something monumental. This was what transformation felt like. Now, it was time to soar. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Remember, only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.